Welcome back to another episode of Chat GRC on the Blue-Lusional podcast, where myself, Devin, and Casey interview a new grassroots candidate. Sir, please tell us who you are and what you are running for.
My name is Michael Eisner. I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives for what's now referred to as the Ohio 7th Congressional District, but that numbering can change, as can the borders, as I'm sure many people are aware. We're dealing with some pretty bad gerrymandering issues here right now.
Yes, we are.
Mm-hmm.
So as of right now, that's your district as of right now, which is crazy that we have to talk like that. But I'm sure everybody wants to know what inspired you to run in this coming cycle.
That's a great question, because I've been a lawyer and a businessman for the last almost 30 years. 25 years of that, I was working for other firms and doing things more on a volume basis. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, when I parted ways with one of those firms, I formed my own practice. And I thought I would stay in private practice for the rest of my career, helping people on a one-on-one basis. I started thinking about making a change on our national government level, probably right after the election. And it's like every year you go through this and there's something wrong with what's happening in DC. Is there something we can do better? Don't we really need real people, not people who are just looking to hold on to power and profit off of it? And so I started thinking about it, and then my family and I talk myself off the ledge, and we don't make the jump. This year was different. About 9 months, 9 months into private practice, I got diagnosed with cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I beat that cancer because of treatments that let me keep my natural hair and all of my heart muscle. And that came from research that was funded through NIH grants. So when they started talking about cutting NIH funding and National Science Foundation funding and dismantling the Centers for Disease Control, and DOJ was coming in and making cuts, but not making cuts to make the government more efficient, to make it less efficient because they're actually firing the people who are the best workers. Probationary employees in the federal government are people who have moved up GS levels, gotten promotions, been recruited from one agency to another. They're actually the best employees. And they just, because that's who they were allowed to cut, they just cut the best, making us probably less efficient, not more. So smaller and more efficient is a good thing. Smaller and less efficient is a really bad thing. So when those things started happening, the thing that was so personal to me was the attacks on the NIH and the attacks on science and the attacks on public education, of which I benefited from and was able to get my law degree and have my career. Those are the things that made my wife say, you know what, Michael, it's go time. And so once she gave me the thumbs up, and we had been talking about it for a couple of months and started testing the waters, it was a firm decision at that point. Let's give this a go. Do it on a grassroots level. Build things just by meeting people, getting out there organically, and then let the mechanisms fall into place as we get further along the campaign. So those are my big motivations for running. But of course, as a lawyer, there's also the attacks on the rule of law and preserving our constitutional rights and the safety and security that we all have from that, and our freedoms, our individual freedoms. They're all at stake now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the amount of people that we've talked to, every single one has obviously been a grassroots candidate. Everyone has a different response, but it's always rooted in something personal happening where it was like, okay, this is personal now. Now you've done this. It's affected me personally, and I know how it's going to affect everybody else. It's time for me to do this.
And it's not just that it affects me personally. It's the empathy that I have for the other people, the ones who are going to follow, who won't get the benefit of better treatments. The ones who won't get the benefit of, they were talking about throwing away 15 years of data from women's health research studies on hormone replacement. I've got a mom. Thank goodness she's still with us. I've got a wife. I've got 4 daughters between myself and my wife. I know more than half this planet are women. We should not be throwing that research away because it doesn't fit into the box that somebody at the highest level of government thinks that it should. So it's the empathy and it's the learning from people and listening to people. The campaign slogan is, the way I've been running the campaign and the way that I've been living, it's a voice for all. And that starts with listening and learning. And there's so many things that if the people in power would just get their heads out of their rear ends and start listening to people and identifying these are real problems that are affecting people's lives. It's driving up the cost of goods, making our daily cost of living higher, making it harder for us to live the American dream. It's driving the average age of the first-time homebuyer from about 24 when I bought my first house to 38 now, and it's just going up. It's taking away people's security from being able to have access to healthcare, and it's giving way too much power to insurance companies over people's medical choices and decisions. And so those are all things. And I talk with people, and I met with a woman at one of our events who held up 15 envelopes and said, these all just came today. And they were all from her health insurance, all telling her effective October 1, each of these providers, each letter was for a separate provider that she needed. Each of these providers are no longer going to be a network. You can't see them anymore. You have to pay for them yourself. And there's some easy fixes to problems like that. It just takes leadership listening and then getting together and putting those laws in place and regulations in place that the federal government can do things to keep people more safe and secure.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a good segue into the next question. Next question. What kind of powers would you have as a congressman on the local level for the constituents that are hurting right now and that are seeing that, it's not looking good?
Yeah, so there are 435 congresspeople, or there are 435 people who are supposed to be representing their own district. Our government's broken up into two branches in the legislative branch, the House of Representatives that I'm running for, and the Senate. They're designed to have checks and balances within the legislative branch. And the legislative branch is supposed to be a check and balance against the executive and the judiciary, and they're all supposed to work against each other to make sure that our rights are being protected. One congressman doesn't usually have that much power because he's one voice of the 435 who are lucky enough to serve. And it's really supposed to be service. So there are things that the federal government does for local governments and local districts. We happen to have a representative right now who, the first time they passed what they call the Big Beautiful Bill, the BBB, I refer to it as the Big American Nightmare, the BAN or the BAN Act, because it's banning people from being able to get health care. It's banning rural hospitals from being able to stay in business long term. It's banning kids from being able to get the free and appropriate public education that our country was founded on, that is the foundational support for our democracy. And it's banning so many other things. So I call it the BAN Act. When that was passed and sent over to the Senate for approval the first time, our representative just said, and I hate using that term because I don't think he's representing anybody except his control, his need for power, and the small million and billionaire constituency that he comes from. But he didn't take a stand, and it was a 217 vote. All he had to do was take a stand against his former boss, President Trump, and say, this bill that you're passing, that you're shoving down everybody's throats, it's not good enough. It does nothing but hurt the people in our community. And so when you have opportunities like that, you have to have the courage to stand up for what's right. The other thing is, I've got a long history of working with people on the other side of what I believe. For 29 years or 30 years, I've been a personal injury lawyer, negotiating with insurance companies and defendants and defense lawyers. And we discover the mechanism of coming together. And as a moderate, I see a lot of benefit in coming together. But to do that, what you have to do is, one, have a dancing partner on the other side. You can't do it on your own. And two, when you have that partner, you have to find some common ground. So you don't go into those negotiations with the way that our government has become so polarized. You're wrong, I'm right. There's no discussion. And now I'm going to take my 5 minutes on the House floor and I'm going to yell at you and sensationalize it and make it even more of an us versus them. That gets nothing accomplished. It doesn't help the people that hopefully I will be elected to serve and to help. So you find some common ground. You find things that in their positions you can agree with. You find things in your position that you know if they're being in any way intellectually honest, they have to agree with. When you start making that gap smaller and bringing it closer together. Now, that being said, there's also times where you have to take a strong stand. And I think right now, with what's going on with the budget and whether we're going to have a government shutdown, I think the Democratic leadership needs to take a very, very strong stance. They need to get together as a team and say, these are the things that we want to accomplish in the budget. These are the things we want to restore that were taken away by the Ban Act. These are the things that we want to improve and show that our value system is the value system that aligns with almost all of America. Keep us safe, give us economic opportunity, and make sure that our constitutional rights are protected so that our kids can have a good education and that the American dream stays alive for everybody. And I think if we take those stances and we come up with 2 or 3 things that we say, these are the things that are not negotiable for us. These are the things that you've taken away and they're damaging our constituents. And they stand firm on that. I think you stand a much better chance of winning the shutdown than losing it. And I don't take on any battle with the intention of not winning it. Lawyers hate losing. We hate losing more than we like winning.
I like that.
But we also love winning. And winning right now is preserving things and restoring some things so that the lives of 95%, really more like 98 or 99% of our community is made better, not worse, by government action. So I think what I can do, if I'm lucky enough to serve and I earn people's trust, what I can do is the same thing I'm doing now as a candidate. Be there and listen and respond. I'm not going to agree with people every time. There are going to be people on both sides of issues. But by listening to them and learning what their problems really are and seeing how big those problems are, you can start forming those alliances and building a better government back from what was torn down.
Yeah. And we've said from the start of doing this, there's so many people that, and up until this point, have never paid attention because you never felt like you had to pay attention to what, the House does versus what the Senate does versus the Supreme Court and all of these things until we felt like we lost in November. And then we pulled the curtain back and we realized a lot of politicians that we voted in to represent us weren't doing it. And then you go, wait, well, what are you supposed to be doing then? Because it feels like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so we've made it a habit to ask every single person, because we hope by the time primaries come around, everybody can tell us we're voting for this person because this is what we know they should be doing. And this is who's going to do it. Plus, on the other side, we are also seeing politicians choose to either represent their constituents or loyalty to whoever's paying them. We're watching a lot of money, whatever you want to call it, come into play. And we need people who are willing to fight for their constituents. So hearing you say, we got to meet in the middle, but we should be showing up to the table with some demands saying, we could do this government shutdown. That's going to be on you guys, but we could stop this. But here are our demands. We're not just going to roll over.
Yeah. And I don't think the Republican Party is so aligned that they're going to have the votes without some Democratic buy-in on the national level. Because there are people who in the Republican Party, in leadership, in Congress, who think the cuts aren't big enough and the incentives for the wealthy aren't large enough. And then you add into it the fiscal irresponsibility of adding roughly somewhere between $3 and $5 trillion to our national debt. That just makes cost of living higher for our kids and our grandkids. It increases the interest rate. These tariffs are taxes that should be in the control of Congress, and Congress should be flexing their muscle with the executive branch, with the president, and not just saying, we give our constitutional duties in it's Article 1, Section 8. We're giving them to you. You go ahead and do what you want. And if we actually had listened to economic experts, again, it comes to listening and learning. The first way you start representing anybody is learning. To think I know everything would make me worse than the people who are. I know there are a lot of things I can learn, and there are a lot of things that I don't know. But knowing that I don't know them gives me the opportunity to listen to people, to learn, to form my own judgment, and act in a way that actually serves the people of this district. And this is what's been missing for, probably 20 years. And
Mm.
That's
one-party
crazy.
control does not serve
It
people
doesn't.
well.
For a while, no. And we're seeing it all over, not even just in Ohio, is the fact that it's just become we show up to the ballot and we vote for this person because we feel like we're supposed to, even though they haven't really done anything for us. So this leads perfectly into the next question. I've been looking at some headlines in Ohio because I don't live there. So I want to know what's going on before we talk to you. I'm seeing headlines like farmers are entering crisis. I'm seeing universities that are struggling with the cuts that they're facing, hospitals in rural areas already starting to shut down, healthcare jobs, people are packing up and leaving. We are seeing already the effects of this bill in action and these tariffs in action. So we want to know for your district, what has this administration been doing that has affected your constituents and you know that you need to step in and take over?
Well, that's a big question. There's so many things this administration is doing that's offensive to most of the people in the district. The things that are affecting them already, access to healthcare, is people start falling off of the social networks. They don't have a way of getting medical care. When I was battling cancer, one of the things that happened is occasionally I would get sick, and I was what's called a neutropenic risk. So if I got a fever, I had to go straight to the emergency room, hand them a special card. They isolated me somewhere else. As people don't have health insurance and there aren't enough doctors at the primary care level, it drives them to the emergency room because the emergency room is the one place that they can choose to go where they have to be seen. And now the rooms get overwhelmed with patients. Our healthcare cost goes up because if they are paying as a out-of-pocket self-pay and they can't afford to pay it, those bills that aren't paid have to get absorbed by through the economic system by others. And that makes the cost for everyone higher. It makes the wait times longer. The longer we're sitting in an emergency room, the less safe we are. We should be building a healthcare network that is fiscally responsible, that pays for itself, that regulates the health insurance industry so that medical decisions start being made between doctors and patients, not between healthcare executives and healthcare administrators, not by insurance companies. So there are things that we have to do to provide that level of care and service for them. Rural hospitals, they're already talking about not if they're going to shut down, but when.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're given this like short window of time where they get extra funding, it's only a fraction of what they're going to lose. And as the rural hospitals go out, the farmers are going to have to travel farther to get care. It's going to make their lives less safe. It's going to put them at greater risk when they get sick, when their kids get sick. It's going to increase infant mortality rates when people have babies because they're not getting the care that they need. It takes us backwards. The other big thing that I've seen from talking with our constituents and doing research and learning is the Ban Act cut 40% from NASA's budget. Our representative did nothing to protect that. He serves, or supposedly serves, on the Science and Technology Committee.
Wow.
But he did nothing to fight for NASA Glenn Research Center. NASA Glenn in our district and the surrounding district is responsible for a total of roughly 9,000 jobs, 1,500 government contractors. I forget the numbers, but a large number of non-government organizations. And then all of the economic impact that comes from that with hotels and restaurants and retail, small businesses. Small business built this country. The current administration wants to take that away from people and monopolize everything into a handful of consolidated. It doesn't serve the people. So those are real losses for people, and those are things that we really have to stand up and fight for. And I'm really ashamed, not surprised, but ashamed of the current rep who did not even take a stance when Huntsville, Alabama, that the economic impact is 10% of what it is here in Berea, Ohio, and in the surrounding areas. They fought and they got concessions. The two senators and the absent representative, they did not take a stand at all for the people that elected them. So let's put in front of them somebody who is more like them, somebody will listen to them, and somebody will give them a chance to live the American dream the way they're supposed to. I don't know if I answered your question, but I hope
No,
I
you
did.
did. You did.
You ended that perfectly too.
Mhm.
And then so this like had my gears turning earlier when I was thinking about it. So you being an attorney, and then you, as you were just putting it, how like they're not putting like taking a stand on anything, and I think a lot of people feel that way with their reps. Like I think all of us are like, what are you guys even doing? So it's like a weird time to be an attorney for a lot of people. So as
A
you're
weird time to be a
watching them,
politician too, Devin.
Yes.
yeah, yeah, so you're going full force in, but so as you're in that field and you're seeing this, are you thinking to yourself, okay, oh, you should have did XYZ. There's this loophole here. You could have been able to push back on whatever it is that this, administration is trying to do, but it's like, oh, you had that option, but you didn't. Like, are you seeing that
From the constituents or me personally?
as like being an attorney?
As an attorney, yeah, I see
Yeah.
strategically where your opportunities are.
Mm,
And like I said, you don't go into a case and hide your worst facts from a jury or from whoever's making the decision on the other side, whether it's a jury, a judge, a defendant, or her attorney, or an insurance adjuster. You own your weaknesses. You acknowledge them. It gives you credibility. It gives you strength. And then you make them acknowledge theirs, or you make them acknowledge the strengths of your case. And so strategically, there's always that balance of what do I do with this fact? What do I do with that one? I think one of the things that really irks me as an attorney, because people think of the law as a game. It's not. It's people's lives. And it's about fairness.
yeah.
And it's about seeking the truth. That's what the first stage of a trial is called voir dire, which just means be truthful, tell the truth. It's about seeking the truth and finding a remedy for wrongs. And what irks me as an attorney more than anything is when our government is ignoring the truth, or people in power are making up fake truths, fiction, for their own purpose. That really irks me. It's not what our founding fathers intended. It's not what my grandfather taught my dad and me. It's not what my dad and my mom taught me. It's not the way that I try to teach my kids. It's an obscenity. It really is. It's just disgusting what they are doing. And
Mhm.
we need to regain power to stand up for what's right, to be upstanders, not bystanders. But, one of the things the cancer battle taught me, and my second wife has taught me, and she's spectacular. I was dating her when I was diagnosed, and she was right there along with me through the treatments, the loss, when I went from 181 to 148, and was really battling and started feeling pity for myself. Why is this happening to me? And she would remind me ad nauseum, Michael, it's not what's happening to you, it's what's happening for you. The universe gives you what you need. It's the lesson you have. There were then, after it's all done and I'm healthy, thank goodness I'm healthy again. I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't. After
Yeah.
it was all done, I saw the truth in that. I learned I can do two jobs at one time. Then it was the job of building it and running a law practice and battling an illness with treatments that beat the daylights out of me. Now it's running my law practice and running for Congress.
Mhm.
After we win, again, I don't take on anything to lose. After
I
we
know.
win, it will be working for the constituents and still balancing the needs of my family with
Mhm.
making that huge sacrifice of being away from them for part of the time,
Yeah.
almost
People
half the
forget
time of the
that.
year.
Yeah.
Yep.
People forget
So,
that you don't
it's not like I
you
live
don't work from
in Delaware or
Ohio.
Maryland and can drive back and forth through my own house.
Yep.
Right.
So it's
It's
the
gonna
things
be
that are done for us, not to us. And one
Mhm.
of the things that very much feels like it's being done to us is the dismantling of the institutions. And there are
Closing
things that
loopholes.
they are doing that are going to be so hard to come back from. They being the people in power. The chasing off of educators, the chasing off of medical researchers and science researchers, the cuts from the private and public sector into science and research and education, and knowing that for every dollars spent at a public education at the secondary level at high school, a voucher, they spend 3 times as much to educate one kid for wealthy families to get subsidies to send their kids to private school. And then the private schools catch on to the game, and then they raise the tuition because they know the families can already afford it. So they just take in more profit off of it. It's just another sign of greed and not service. And I'm not saying private schools are bad. I think people should have the choice. But I don't think you take away from funding public education to go ahead and allow administrators at private and sometimes religious private schools make more money and have more influence. So one of the things that we'll be able to do once this phase is over is we're going to have to rebuild what's been torn down. And so I view that as an opportunity. It's not that it's been done to us and we no longer have it. And now that we're back in power, let's go ahead and put it back exactly how it was. How it was is what got us to where we are today. How it was is what drove people to the Trump cult.
That's the take.
And so now what we will have the opportunity to do when they're no longer under the thumb of an authoritarian president and the handful of people that hold the true power around him, and we start building it back, borrowing a phrase from, I think it was Biden, build it back better. We have the opportunity to fix those things because the institutions are so dismantled that when we do recover from this, we can put our society back in a place where everybody feels heard and feels part of it. And what's the one thing that drives people to anger more than anything? If you don't listen to them, they don't feel like they have a voice, they don't feel heard. As you put it earlier, they feel like it doesn't matter to them because nothing they do will make a change. So I think those are the leaders that we need, ones that at least allow people to be heard, even if they don't get everything they want. And nobody gets everything they want, but at least they'll have a voice and they'll feel like government's at the very least trying to do some good.
Yes, I love that answer. That's a great
Yeah.
answer. And
you.
we
It's
know
just me.
that, we're still early in this. So, primaries are coming around the corner, but there's still a lot of damage that can be done in the meantime. We're already seeing, crimes be committed. It seems like every day. And I think people want leaders that are also going to hold this administration accountable after the fact. So, with somebody like you, who is an attorney and probably understands all of the crimes that have been committed and all the laws that have been broken, when you win, would you support legislation and solutions that would hold this administration accountable for crimes that they've committed?
So that's a very nuanced question. There's a lot of detail within that. My whole career has been about holding people accountable for their mistakes. Now, I've been a civil attorney, I've been a civil attorney, not a criminal attorney. I've done very little criminal defense work. I've never been a prosecutor. But I do walk in those circles. And prosecutors try to hold people accountable for crimes they commit. Civil attorneys try to hold people accountable for the mistakes that they make. And on the other side of the ledger, the defense lawyers are trying to hold people accountable so they're not gaming the system. This case of this administration right now is the worst gaming of the system that I have ever imagined. Not seen, imagined. It is the biggest grift that we have ever seen in this country. And I think that those people, all of them, have to be held accountable. And you talk about a lot of crimes that we're seeing. Some of those crimes are being done by people who are forced into desperation. And so one person makes a mistake, somebody who's aligned with Elon Musk or Donald Trump gets beat up, and then they militarize DC. There's protests that are going on. A few people get out of hand, so they militarize LA. The day after, the lower court ruled that the administration acted illegally to send the National Guard and military into LA to police the streets. Trump said, it's not if, it's when we send them into Chicago. We just had an incident this weekend in Cleveland where there was a shooting at a bar. I'm fearful that they're going to do the same thing here. So we are it's considered a red state. We're not a swing state anymore. Probably 55% leaning right, and 45% leaning towards the Democratic side. But Cleveland itself is run by a Democratic mayor who is on the rise and who is a minority. All of those things that it seems like this administration is fighting against. And so I'm fearful They're going to take an incident like that and use it as justification to send the Guard and the military into the streets of Cleveland. And Cleveland, Ohio is just outside of my district, but the people in my district work in Cleveland. We go there, like where the shooting was, we go right around the corner for dinner. Our kids go there for nightclubs to have a good, a release. My college kid, the 23-year-old. So it's frightening. And we really need to be careful about where we go. Yeah. Sending the military into the American streets to police, there's a reason there's an 18-something law, 1870-something, I think, 1873 law against it. So I think I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but there are...
No, I mean...
You're good.
It is good to go over all the things that are happening that are definitely against the law. That's what we talk about on the podcast. We just talked about him killing 11 people that he suspects of being drug smugglers, which still, even if they were, that's not a capital crime. That's not a death penalty.
Not in this country.
Not even due process. You just blew the boat up. You're okay with that. You said that's perfectly fine. It's not.
You are 100% right. And it's not even as if they were a threat to one of our warships that were patrolling the area. They weren't a immediate threat to the United States. There was no reason we could have just sent people in, captured them, proven that they were doing what they did. Due process is all about, and listen, I know they're not American citizens. They're not here. They're not on American soil. They're in international waters. But it's still a crime, a crime against international law. And I'm all for our military doing things that make us safer. It was a really hard decision. I always will remember looking at the photos from the war room or the situation room when we were finally getting justice against Osama bin Laden. In watching the faces of Obama and Hillary Clinton and the Secretary of Defense and all of them around the table, watching the secure live stream as the operation was going on, making America safer. And those are tough choices. And sometimes those choices have to be made. And sometimes people in other countries may look at those and say, we think you went too far. We think you violated the law. But this isn't that. These aren't people that are plotting an imminent attack against us. We don't even know if they had fentanyl on that boat.
No.
And because they blew it up, there's no way of knowing. So when it comes to the people that are here, the Constitution gives everybody due process.
Everyone.
As a legal scholar, I will tell anybody who wants to listen, if your feet are on the soil of this country, you are entitled to some level of due process. Now, that level of due process might be different for somebody who's an illegal immigrant versus somebody who has been here working for 20 years and has a work visa or a green card versus a U.S. citizen. But there's some level of due process. Due process is designed to avoid mistakes. And if you take away the due process and you just pick people up and you throw them into a jail cell to disappear and never be heard of, you ship them into foreign countries, you don't give them any hearing, the government hasn't even shown that the person is who they think they are. And so I saw this reel either yesterday or the day before. It was a young ICE agent, because that's what they're recruiting. People with way too much college debt who are desperate. And he's wearing his mask, and all you can see is from here up. And they asked him, how much did it cost for you to sell out your principles? He said, I got a $50,000 signing bonus. And he said, is it worth it, $50,000 to sell out your principles? And he said, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, it is what's keeping me out of debt. And isn't that the American dream, to not be in debt? Now, I'm going to disagree with him on what the American dream is. I don't think it's to not be in debt. I think the American dream is to have the opportunity to live a better life than the generation above you. It's the opportunity to have the security of your own home in owning something. It's the opportunity to have a job and a living wage. One of the things that got us here is the excessive debt that we are putting in, non-dischargeable debt that we are putting on people's shoulders for them to go to college and to be able to get the education that I got, and I was able to come out with very limited debt. I was lucky. But that was, I graduated law school in 1994, started practicing in 95. So I might be off by a year. I might have graduated in 95. I'd have to go look. It was very different then than it is now. And institutionally or systemically, there are things that make people feel that desperate. And there are some states that are saying, hey, yeah, I know Trump's promising you if you sign up as an ICE agent before he leaves office, he's pardoning you for anything you did. A lot of these crimes, they are state crimes. The states can charge these ICE agents if the agent knows what they're doing violates the state law and detains somebody without due process, without a warrant, without even reasonable suspicion, just based on how they look or where they work. There's a word for that in the law. Wrongfully detaining somebody against their will is called kidnapping. I told my own son, he's like, I think they're offering like $150,000 signing bonus for high school graduates to go be ICE agents. And I said to him, tell your friends it's not worth it. $150,000 seems like an awful lot of money to most people, especially to 18-year-old boys.
Oh, of course.
But it's not worth it to lose your soul, to give up what you know is right, to give up on what your own passion is that you should be following so that you can live that dream, to then commit crimes and have to look at yourself in the mirror after you had a chance to reflect on it and be sickened by what you did. So I hope that message gets through to the young men in this country and they figure out better ways of getting into the trades, of getting their education, and that our leadership figures out better ways of making education affordable so that we can get back to those good, high-paying jobs that have been cut by this administration.
To that point you just made, what would be, your top 3 priorities when you win? Because I feel like you're just starting to hit that.
Priority number 1 for me, restore people's access to healthcare and fix our healthcare networks in our system so that doctors get back to giving the care that they were trained to give. They spend far too much time, we talked about this already, battling with insurance companies to get the patients the care that they think the patient needs. For someone who's got no medical training at all to say, I'm sorry, I don't like the way you coded that. No, we're not going to pay it. So one of those fixes is let's figure out a system, again, a fiscally responsible one, not one that adds $4 trillion to our deficit, one that pays for itself. And there are ways of doing that, but that gives people the choice of a government healthcare, nationalized healthcare network or a private healthcare network. And they can decide for themselves, what risk do I want to take? I don't think it's government's job to stop people from making bad decisions, but it's certainly not government's job to make bad decisions for people. Give them the choice to make those decisions. So then you create that hybrid between a nationalized system and a private system. You regulate it in a way that makes sure that both sides of that system are competitive. So you're adding to the competitive market. You're bringing everybody or as close to everybody as you can within the networks, and you start eliminating some of the differences between in-network and out-of-network so that somebody like me didn't have to give up his 15-year primary care doctor because my health insurance made me choose between University Hospitals of Cleveland and the Cleveland Clinic. And I chose the Cleveland Clinic because the most important person to me in the world besides my family at that time was my hematologist oncologist. So fixing some of those problems, making it so that health insurance companies can't take your doctor out of network unless it's during an open enrollment period, so that you then have the choice of staying in that network or going and choosing one where you can see the same doctors. So sure, go ahead and negotiate while you're in that lock period, but don't allow them to change who's in your network. Change isn't the right word there. I want to be precise with my words. Don't allow the insurance company to restrict who's in your network after it's established. If they want to bring more doctors in, great. But taking a doctor out, there should be a window of time, just like we only have a window of time to sign up for insurance. So fixing the healthcare problems is number 1. People should stop having to worry about keeping the roof over their head, putting food on the table, being able to get their kids to school, being able to get to work, or staying healthy and staying alive. This is, I don't view this as a red or a blue issue. I view this as a red, white, and blue issue. The next is public education, we touched on this. The Department of Education, in my mind, it's misnamed. I'm not a big believer in labels. I think getting into the labeling battle is something that got us to where we are as a party, where people are like, you only care about this or that. And we start using terms that aren't meeting people where they really are. But I think the Department of Education has been mislabeled for a long time. Yes, it provides funding for states to maintain their public education system. It's designed to do that. And it does it in many respects poorly and needs to be improved. But what it really is, the majority of it, is the Department of Student Civil Rights. It's what gives the enforcement mechanism. The Office of Civil Rights, the one in Cleveland that just got shut down, it's the enforcement mechanism for kids with disabilities and special needs to be able to get the services and care so that they can be more productive, so that they can stay in school until their 23rd birthday. That's the current law. I know all of this all too well because my niece is pretty severely special needs and nonverbal, and she's made so many strides beyond what they told my sister and brother-in-law she would ever be able to do. This is a kid that they told them would never crawl, would never roll over, never sit up, never crawl, never walk, never talk, never feed herself. She has hit all of those marks except for being verbal. This is a young child, a 17-year-old now, who skis. She not just rides a bike and walks and does dishes better than my neurotypical kids do. She skis. And a lot of that was them fighting and learning what they needed to do to give her a chance. But the other side of that is, if you take away the enforcement and you take her out of school at 18 or 19, that's 4 years where she's not getting services, not improving, and where the two of them can't both work and build their business and provide for their family and improve the lives of the people in the community with the work that they do. So it's really, education is about our democracy. There's a reason it was all mandated for every state that came into the union after the first 13 to gain statehood. They had to have public education. It's about preserving our democracy. It's about teaching kids critical thinking so that in this day and age where we have these, and they have access to information, and as we talked about before, some of which is just flat out false and designed to mislead, it gives them the skills to be able to say to themselves, is this something that makes sense? Is this something I should research? Is this something that I know? And is this something I should believe? So creating that critical thinking is a big step along the way for preserving our democracy. You guys are frozen. Can you still hear me?
No, I can still hear you.
Okay. So that's number 2 is preserve public education. Number 3, it's all part of living the American dream. Make things more affordable. That's what Congress can do. The tariffs are not only raising interest rates, they're raising costs. And we just had a downward revision of the jobs report that got the administrator at Bureau of Labor and Statistics fired for telling the truth. Just got downwardly revised to the largest number since 2009 when we were going through a financial crisis.
It's crazy.
And a lot of these things, and Jerome Powell may be battling with the president, and the president's trying to fire members of the Federal Reserve Board because he's not giving him the lower interest rates he wants. There's a way for him to get the lower interest rates. Stop these stupid uses of tariffs. Some tariffs have a purpose. They should be subject to congressional oversight.
Absolutely.
But to just willy-nilly throw tariffs out on everybody in violation of the treaties that past Congresses and presidents have signed and approved, it's not only illegal, at least in my view, it's damaging to our economy. So start taking steps that help control costs, like the Republicans promised people when they were getting elected in 2024. Not taking steps to blow up our economy, to have, for the first time, I think the other stat I saw last week is, for the first time in over a decade, you have fewer jobs, or fewer jobs, and you have people looking for jobs. I almost got that backwards.
More unemployed.
And so our employment situation's going the wrong way. Our cost of living is going the wrong way. I don't know if you guys have bought anything lately. I know
Yeah.
my wife owns a
With
small
what?
business and she's buying stuff that comes from Brazil and
Yep.
Uruguay, and she
Hmm.
buys a lot of crystals for her store and gems, and most of them come from outside of the country. A lot of the vendors, their prices went up so much that she had to say, "I can't sell this in my store anymore. It's a big seller,
Mhm.
but I can't double or triple my price and still expect people to buy it." So those are problems that I want to see fixed and fixed right away. And then if I'm going to add a fourth, it's accountability. Hold people accountable for their decisions and for their mistakes.
Hmm.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So if you'll
All
let me
accountable.
freeform here for a second,
Sure.
when I told people I was running there, they said, but power corrupts everybody. So how do we know
Yeah.
you're going to be different than the people you're ranting and raging against today? And so my answer to that is I've got people who hold me accountable. I've chosen 10 people in my network, ranging from my parents to other relatives to friends who have known me for 30 years or longer. And those 10 people all have license to say to me, Michael, you're going too far. It's getting to your head. You're done. And my pledge was if one of those 10 say that to me, the 10 people I trust in my inner network, I never run for reelection again.
You
So
heard him say it.
holding people accountable, you also have to have mechanisms to hold yourself so that the
Hmm.
greed doesn't get in the way. And Congress should not be
Mhm.
trading on stocks with inside information.
And definitely not on the floor.
Mhm.
They should not be
Just
beholden to
Deal with
special
it.
interests that form super PACs and give them their power. We should really figure out a way of overturning Citizens United and
yes,
making
thank
it
Hmm.
a
you for
system where
saying
people,
that.
again, like we started today, get back to representing,
Yeah.
starting with listening, and then working towards solutions for real problems for real people. That's how they
Hmm.
end up being a voice for all and not just a voice for
Yes.
themselves.
Hmm. And in representing the people need to go vote. And so this is the next question we have for you is that after this past election, and for a lot of people this was their first time being able to vote for uh our Gen Zers, uh, they're not feeling so great about that election and they're not feeling so great about the representation they're seeing. And we started this podcast, well, not the podcast, but the interview section of this podcast because so many people have come to us and said they don't think their votes are going to matter anymore when it comes to even local elections. So, what would you say to somebody who is checking out and doesn't think that they should even be showing up to vote in this next coming election?
I would give them a homework assignment. Go to your local, either Democratic or Republican clubs. And notice I didn't just say Democratic clubs. I go to the Democratic clubs because that's where people air the concerns that I'm listening to right now. If the
Mhm.
Republican clubs would have me and let me speak as a Democrat, I would go there too. But go to the clubs and listen and learn and get involved. Take control back of your lives. Don't just say, throw up your hands. It's all
Yeah.
outside of my control. And then find the things you care about. Talk to people in your community. Talk to your local leaders, your council people. They will talk to you. Your local mayor, if you're not in a big city, he or she will talk with you. Talk with him. Let him know what your concerns are for your community. Let him know what your concerns are for what the government is doing to help them and to hurt them, and start expressing the voice. Because if you sit back silently, and you just say, I've had it, there's nothing I can do, I feel hopeless, well, now that becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. And then
Mhm.
as you get more active in these clubs and you learn, run for office yourself. One of the things the
Yes.
Democratic Party has been lacking for the last 20 years is a I'm trying to use
I know where
baseball.
you're
A
going.
minor league would be the
Right.
baseball analogy, right? It's
They
bringing
don't have a
people
deep
up,
bench.
teaching them how,
Yeah.
no bench at all,
Mhm.
teaching them how to
Mhm.
govern, how to listen to people, how to start working for
Nepo
people,
babies of
in
politics.
providing those services. Sorry, it's late and after a long few days, but
We're
so I
good.
brain
We're
cramped.
You're good. I knew exactly where you were going with it. I got it.
Thank you for the help,
We say
Devin. I appreciate
non-nepo
it.
babies of
Love
So,
that.
but
politics.
start
Mhm.
being that bench. If
Mhm.
you care about education, learn and then run for local school board. If you care about your local government, learn and see if your representative in your council is working for you. And if they're not, challenge them and do what I'm doing. if you think your representative isn't doing the job, go out and give people a different choice. And by doing all those things, you're going to feel more engaged. You're going to be more involved. And here I am talking at people the way I tell people not to do. But you're going to feel more engaged, more involved. You're going to feel part of the solution. And you may take a lot of losses along the way, but when you get that win, man, I am telling you, you are going to relish in it. And you're going to say,
Yes.
you know what? That guy Eisner was right. I'm the upstander. I'm no longer the bystander.
Yep.
Yes, you guys heard it here.
Yep.
Michael said to go to the clubs, and by clubs, he means your local political clubs.
Well,
Those are the clubs that all the Gen Zers should be at.
The
Yeah,
other thing you can
exactly. We
do
don't need
is
to be in
go
the
to your
nightclubs.
local. I'm sorry, Devin. I didn't know you were talking.
No, you're good.
Go to your local honk and wave protests. Start talking
Yeah.
with people and meeting them. Start
Yep.
airing your concerns in a peaceful way. If you put your voice out there enough, it will be heard. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be louder. It just has to have more mass behind it.
Yeah.
So if it's one person
Mhm.
screaming on the corner, it's meaningless. If it's 250 people getting together, holding up signs, waving, celebrating what they think our country should be together, that has some weight.
Oh, yeah.
We are
see it at
stronger
the town
together than
halls,
we are
too.
apart. That's why people in power who are trying to hold on to power are trying to push you apart from your neighbors.
Mhm. Yes. Mhm.
So,
That part.
and by the way, yeah, go to your Democratic clubs. If you want to go and listen to the other side, go to the Republican clubs. It's not like every idea they have is a bad one. It's not like every idea that Trump has is a bad idea. But it is that every way he has implemented an idea that started with a good idea has
It's
been
bad.
so reckless, so dangerous, so insulting that they've become bad ideas. Recognize
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
can be strong by being empathetic, kind, and compassionate.
It's not a weakness.
If
Not
we
a
lift up
weakness at all.
everybody, we all do better.
Yes.
And that's what we
Exactly.
should be looking for. Let's
Mhm.
rise the tide that lifts us all.
Ooh, I like that. I have to
Those are
write that
bars.
one down.
So,
Yeah.
and then
Ooh,
if you
yeah.
are burnt out and you're getting protest fatigue or you're feeling helpless,
Then you can go to the club.
take a day and go to the other club. Make sure it's a safe
Go
one.
to the
But
other club.
take the day, go to the other club.
Yeah.
I know.
So if you're a golfer, go
Yes.
golf. And I started playing baseball when I was 50 years old. Try something new and different.
There's something new.
Live
Yes.
life.
Okay.
Feel the moment.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
you're going to have some joys. You're going to have some hardships,
Happiness
but you're going
is
to
resistant.
appreciate the journey.
Mhm.
Oof.
Speaking of getting into fun things.
Yes, we've hit the lighter portion. So, I usually feel like I can gauge, but I feel like I'm not going to know this. Okay, so if you were running for president, who would your dream VP be, living or dead?
I have no desire to be president of the States.
You're not the first person to say
No,
that.
Yeah,
seriously,
somebody who's picked
I have a
president and they
desire.
were VP.
I have a strong desire to represent the people of the Ohio 7th Congressional District, to help the people in our communities. If I were to play that fantasy, wow, again,
Doesn't have to be a politician either.
That's true. Or even just somebody that you would want as your right hand if you could have a right hand in politics.
well, I think the key of having a right hand in politics is two. One, it has to be somebody that you trust, somebody who can speak candidly with you so that you are learning from each other and working together. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody inside politics.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of friends that I would love to be my right hand. For a VP, I think when we get to the talk of who's going to be president and who's going to be vice president, I listened to Andy Bashir speak at a dinner. What an impressive man.
Yeah.
I've listened to Gretchen Whitmer.
Okay.
What an impressive woman who faced an assassination attempt herself, a real one, and didn't cower down and stood up and still kept doing for the people of Michigan that she was elected to do. I listened to a Pete Buttigieg, who I think if you put him in the room with almost anybody in the world,
Anyone.
almost, he's going to be the smartest person in the room. If you put him in the room with any politician, I got no doubt he's the most intelligent man in that room. Or woman. So I think there's a lot of depth. What I would really like to see for the Democratic Party is a true primary system that vets, that tests them through the system, that then gets us somebody that we can elect as president. So I love what Gavin Newsom's doing in California because it's standing up and it's shining a light on Trump and putting a mirror to it.
Yep.
Do I want Gavin Newsom to be our nominee? I think it would be a mistake.
Thank you.
We
Thank
have
you. Why can't people
California.
hold
I'm
these?
cowering
Why
with her.
can't people
You were like,
these two separate thoughts? They're like, no, Gavin Newsom's the only option. It's like, no, he's just
no.
doing something, and we acknowledge that. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean we have to vote for him tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we already have California. Haven't we
Yes.
made the mistake of choosing candidates from states that they didn't have to go and win to make a difference?
Mm-hmm.
If we had at the top of the ticket or second on the ticket somebody from Michigan, we'd probably win Michigan.
Yeah.
We can win Michigan. We can win Pennsylvania. You know, Josh Shapiro, brilliant guy, good populist Democrat. So we will have a lot of choices, but let's go through a proper system and let
Yes.
the people
better
that
choices.
care about the system that get out there and vote to decide who our nominee is going to be
Mm-hmm.
and not put handcuffs on.
Yep.
You know, as I dissect what
that.
happened in 2024, there were two events that were the death knell of the Democratic Party for this term. One was, and it started earlier, Joe Biden should have lived up to his original pledge. I'm here as a placeholder. I'm here for one term. We're going to save democracy. And then the younger Democratic Party is going to come in and
Yep.
pick up where I left.
That's what it
So
should have
for
been.
him to just choose to ignore that and to run again or be convinced to run again was a mistake.
Mhm. Yes.
But it really crumbled when he froze during the debate.
Mm-hmm.
And then
was
once
over.
they chose Kamala Harris for us, and maybe she would have been the nominee, maybe not. We don't have a way of knowing because it came too late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
They handcuffed her and she goes on The View and they ask her, tell us one thing you would do different than Joe Biden. She says, I can't think of a thing. The race was
I
over
forgot
then.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let her
Yeah, that
be
was a
her
big
own
critique of
person.
people.
Let her be her own
Yep.
person.
Yeah. She definitely got put into a box.
That was a big critique. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to reading her book, I will say. Her book about that campaign journey. I will be reading it the second I can get my hands on it because I
Yeah.
do think she will talk about that.
Yeah.
Going
things have
from
come
light
out,
to
so.
deep again. Hold them accountable for the Epstein scandal too.
Yes. Oh, everyone.
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone
not
gets
just Republicans.
Every single person.
Oh no,
Yeah.
anyone who's on there. We already said
People
Bill
who
Clinton.
knew,
Yeah.
people who should have known,
Oh,
people who
Under the
participated,
jail. Everyone. Round them up.
yes.
prove that they
Every
did
single
it,
one.
and hold them accountable.
Accountable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care if they're a big
This is
celebrity.
not a hoax. I mean, we have we got a choice. We can demand the release of the files and the blackmail tapes or whatever they have. We can also just choose to believe all of the young women who have told
Survivors.
us their story, bravely told us the stories of abuse.
For decades.
Decades.
Yeah. The scandals just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper.
We know who's on it.
We know.
That drawing never existed, right? The one that got released last night.
It's a hoax.
Yeah, he's never
Then
wrote
it wasn't a
wrote a
hoax,
picture.
and now it's just a forged signature.
And
Oh,
shame on
So-
Mike Johnson.
Mm-hmm. And FBI informants and all of that.
And not.
Super
Well,
spy.
first yes, then not. It's just people telling you what they think you want to hear. And then when they realize that's not what you want to hear, you're not going to believe them, then they go and tell you something else and think you're going to forget. I don't think the American public lacks the intellect to know the difference. I think that they haven't been given the choices to stand up and say, yeah, there is a difference and it matters.
It does matter.
So
for them
it's
being
complicity. So going back to the question for people who think their vote doesn't matter, your voice still matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a local election here that I met with the councilwoman. I think she won her election by 18 votes. You want to tell me every vote doesn't matter when you have an election for an entire city council at large by 18 votes?
There it is.
Yep. There it
Your
is.
vote matters.
There
You never know how close you are to that tipping point of being the one until you're there, except for the guy who I'm trying to replace who knew and ignored it because he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid of being primaried, Republicans. If you're standing up against Donald Trump and saying what you're doing is wrong, if you get primaried and lose your seat, at least you can be. There is more to life than being in government.
Yes.
There's a moral
Mhm.
righteousness and a moral. I don't think we want leaders that are falling on the wrong side of that equation.
No, no. But since you brought up Mike Johnson, we wanted to throw in a little would you rather. We like doing that here. It's a little fun, lighthearted. So this is a would you rather. Would you rather listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about her conspiracies for an hour or hear Mike Johnson talk about his cult for an hour?
Okay, so that's an interesting question.
Who do you want to hear talk for an hour?
I don't want to hear either of them. And I'm sure if you
No.
ask other people in my position, you get the same answer. But if you gun to the head, I have to choose. I can't say pull the trigger. Gun to my kid's head, and I have to choose. Mike Johnson, it's not his cult. He's just a follower of the Trump. And I've heard too much of the Trump cult. At
Mhm.
least with Marjorie Taylor Greene, some of her conspiracies may be, if we can get her talking about holding people accountable for Epstein and the cover ups and the lies,
Yeah,
regardless
she's
of party,
Yeah.
I'd rather hear that than Mike Johnson
Yeah.
saying whatever Trump's telling him to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leaders
she's
are
starting
supposed
to
to
Yeah.
have a voice. That voice is supposed to be the voice of their community,
Mhm.
not the voice of somebody who scares them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be
Yeah.
my choice too. That they're
Yeah.
both
Because
ugh.
yeah, people are like, why is she saying that they need to be held accountable? And I'm like, well, she's QAnon. So she was given this mission. Like they were like, we're gonna get the files out, and then they tell her they're not there, and she's like, oh
They're
no
not
way.
real.
No, no,
And that
no.
really got her
I
going when
need
they said they weren't real.
Yeah.
you told me they were real.
She said, wait a second. Are you telling
Who
me that?
knew? Who knew it wasn't Hillary Clinton ordering a pizza in New Jersey?
No,
That it was
it would be
actually Donald
something else.
Trump and who knows who else.
His
I think the
all of his
scariest
friends.
thing that I've seen, and it's not the trolling that we get as political candidates. I welcome that. If people want to troll me and make false accusations or insult me, my skin's thick enough to take that. Right? The scariest thing I've seen, 47% of the Republican Party, this was by a survey 2 weeks ago, 47% of the Republican Party said they would vote for Trump again, even if they saw videotape proof of him statutorily
Mhm.
raping young girls.
There's no
The
coming
good
back
news
from
is
that.
that 47% is about 10% of the population. Because of the number
Yeah.
of people who don't vote, you take
Yeah.
the percentage of
Well,
people who are eligible who actually do register and do vote compared to those who could be, only about 40, I think probably about 40% vote in a good year. So that means Trump got about 20% of the population. Roughly
yeah.
half of them would still vote for them. We're only talking about 10%, less than 10%. We can overcome
Yeah.
it.
We're
Those
we're working on
10%
those
on both
non-voters.
sides, they should not be controlling the narrative.
Mhm.
We should have a
We're
system,
working
and
on
this
it
gets
over
back to
here.
gerrymandering, that lets the
Yeah, for sure.
80% in the middle come
Mhm.
together and figure out solutions that actually stick and work long term.
Mhm. Love it.
Yep.
So the last thing I
Well,
would say about that is it's another illustration for those who don't vote, who say it doesn't matter. That's why it doesn't matter. If you all come together and you all vote, now your voice really does matter because it
Yeah.
takes away,
Yes.
it marginalizes the margins instead of marginalizing the mainstream. So get
Mhm.
out there, register, and vote.
And vote.
working on it. Working on it.
We're doing the work.
So on the on our one where we like to close out on, we just like to ask everyone what their favorite part of Ohio, well, for you it would be what your favorite part of Ohio is. Like, what's your favorite hidden gem in there that people wouldn't know about, that'd be like the selling point?
For Ohio, it's not a hidden
Mhm.
gem. We have so many gems
Oh.
here. We're right on Lake Erie. You can go up and watch sunrise or sunset on Lake Erie because the lake faces you face the lake to the north. So you turn to your right and
Mhm.
you see sunrise. You turn to your left, you see sunset, especially in the summer. Gorgeous views. We have
Nice.
gorgeous rivers. My wife has a store in Chagrin Falls, which is the Cuyahoga County side in my district, where there's a bridge right over the waterfalls.
Oh.
One of the top 10 shopping destinations in the country for small town shopping almost every year. We've got great sports teams. We've got some really bad run sports teams, but great passion behind it. I think the biggest gem of Ohio are the workers. We have such a good population base. I mean, I've met people who said to me, "Which side are you running on?" And I said, "I'm a Democrat, I'm a moderate Democrat." They go, "I'm on the other side." And I don't just let them walk away. I said, "Just because you identify as Republican, I identify as Democrat, and I have since I worked for Howard Metzenbaum in 1988, um, doesn't mean that there are things that we don't agree on." And I bet if we have a conversation for 5 minutes, we're going to find 3 or 4 things that we agree on. Some will walk away, most will engage. And what I find is that they're really well thought out. They're sometimes misinformed, and sometimes they just feel hopeless and they think that the system was so broken that you got to tear it down. But they're people that we can work with. And I think they're kind people. They're people who care about their neighbors. They're people who go work at the food banks and the churches to make hot meals for those who can't afford. So I think that the people in our district is the true hidden gem. And I will put the people of Ohio up against in a competition against any other state, and we're either a dead heat or win every one of those races.
10 toes down for
10
Ohio. Love
toes
to hear
down for his
it.
constituents. Well, Michael, we want to thank you for having you on. But before we outro out, we want to give you a moment to shameless plug your social media, your website, any events that you might have coming up. Go ahead and just shameless plug.
All the
Shameless plug.
stuff.
Follow my campaign, and you can donate right on the website. It's going to take resources to take out millionaires, and that's who I'm up against. I'm not independently wealthy. So www.eisnerforcongress.com. That's EISNER for Congress spelled out.com. Follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Both are at Eisner for Congress. Events coming up. We have a rep who has not held a true open forum town hall in 2 years.
Oh boy.
October
Jesus
8th.
Christ, every freaking
I'm
time.
this is going to drop before October 8th, right?
Oh, yeah, it'll be out this
Yeah.
Thursday.
So
Yeah.
October 8th at the Parma Powers Branch Library, Parma Powers Boulevard Branch, I am holding an open town hall.
Yes.
Whether you're
Good.
Republican or Democrat or independent,
Good.
no matter whether you're wealthy, middle class, or struggling to make ends meet, come on out. Everybody will get their 3 minutes. They will get to ask me and talk to me about what they are dealing with, what's
Mhm.
working for them, what they want to see better. They can ask me any question in the world and they will get an honest answer. So October 8th,
Let's
6:30 at the Cuyahoga County Library in Parma on Powers Boulevard. And that'll be if you
Perfect.
can't get in because this is going to over promote it and the room's not big enough. We're going to be doing this regularly if people want it.
Oh, yeah. I think
And
that's
then
great.
Should be.
If you
reach
want
out
to,
to
if
me
they want to, you can.
at michael@eisnerforcongress.com. That's the email. It comes to me, not to a staffer. So you'll get a response. May not be the same day because I'm still working a business, handling
Mhm.
cases, and I'm out running. But I check that regularly and I get caught up as much as I can. And so within a reasonable period of time, you're going to get a response. Again, we may not agree on things, but you'll be heard and you'll get a response. So go ahead and bring on the emails.
Bring on those emails.
Love
And
it.
yeah, we can't wait to hear how the town hall goes. And we just can't wait to continue to follow your campaign journey. It's just been an honor to watch every single grassroots candidate that's been able to come on to this podcast and see how they are campaigning. It feels like it's right around the corner. So we want to do everything we can to continue to support grassroots candidates. We know that is where the future of our democracy lies. And we are just so honored that you came on to our little podcast and gave us some time to speak with you and learn more about Ohio. We hope that your constituents listen in and see just how much you care about them.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on, and I hope you'll have me back further along the campaign.
Of course.
Absolutely. Yes.
Course. So thank you guys all for tuning in. And as always, every single Thursday, we drop a new interview with a grassroots candidate. So be sure that you're subscribed and you're following along for the whole journey leading up to primaries. Thank you guys for watching and have a great night. Bye.
Bye.